You know that feeling you get sometimes when you're standing somewhere and the air just feels old, like you've walked into the middle of a story that started thousands of years before you were born. It's a feeling that always gets me. It's that little nudge that makes you look around and wonder, what happened here? What am I missing? Well, there's a place in West Java, Indonesia, that practically screams that question. It's called Gunung Padang, the Mountain of Light, believed to be a natural mountain, but possibly a 27,000-year-old pyramid. Let's go to the island of Java today and visit the Mountain of Light. Here we are. The Mountain of Light, as it looks today, stands behind me. On the surface, it's a beautiful terraced hill topped with ancient stones. Locals have revered it for generations. It's a sacred place. But what if it isn't just a hill? I mean, what if it only looks like a hill? What if it's actually a man-made pyramid so ancient that it completely flips the script on what we think we know about our own past? That's the question that has turned this quiet, sacred site into the center of a huge debate. And it's a fascinating one. It asks us to look at a pile of rocks and wonder if we're actually seeing the last remnant of a civilization lost to time. Okay, so to really get this, we have to zoom out, way out. Back to the last ice age. It's easy to forget that the world we live in is pretty new, geologically speaking. During the ice age, so much water was locked up in glaciers that sea levels were hundreds of feet lower. And this whole area, what we now know as Sumatra, Java, Borneo, it wasn't a collection of islands. It was a single massive landmass connected to Asia, a lost continent really, called Sundaland. Imagine this vast tropical plain. Then imagine the ice melting. For thousands of years, the water just keeps rising, swallowing up the world that was. So the obvious question is, what happened to the people who might have lived there? If a civilization rose and fell on that land, wouldn't it have been completely erased by the rising sea? Unless, maybe, they built something on high ground, something that could survive the flood, which brings us back to Gunung Padang. The terraces you see on top are made of these incredible geometric pillars of stone. It's called columnar basalt, and it can form naturally when lava cools just right. For decades, the official story was pretty straightforward. Nature made the cool rocks, and much later, maybe 2,500 years ago, people came along and arranged them into a sacred site. It's a nice story, right? Humans and nature working together. But a geologist, Dr. Danny Hillman Natawijaja, looked at it and just wasn't convinced. It seemed too intentional, too organized. He started to wonder, is the man-made part just what we see on the surface, or does it go deeper? And this is where things get wild. His team didn't just dig a few pits. They used ground-penetrating radar and seismic tools to see inside the hill. And the data they got back was stunning. It didn't look like a natural hill at all. It looked like a layer cake, a massive structure built in phases with layers of soil between the construction, indicating huge gaps in time. So, how much time? They drilled down and carbon-dated organic material found in the mortar between the stones at different depths. The top layer, the one we can see, about 3,500 years old. Makes sense. Fits the timeline. The next layer down, Unit 2, it came back at around 8,000 years old. Okay, wow, that's a surprise. That's as old as Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which already forced us to rewrite the textbooks. But they weren't done. They drilled deeper into a third layer, and the dates from down there pointed to an age between 9,500 and 27,000 years old. Let that number sink in for a second. 27,000 years. That's not history. That's deep prehistory. That's the middle of the Ice Age. It would mean that people on the shores of ancient Sundaland were building massive, complex structures 15,000 years before even Göbekli Tepe. It changes everything. Now, before we get too carried away planning our trip to see a 27,000-year-old pyramid, we have to be intellectually honest. This is an extraordinary claim, and it's met with extraordinary skepticism. the scientific community has pushed back hard. Critics argue that Dr. Nadawijaja is misinterpreting natural rock formations as man-made construction. They question if the carbon-dated soil samples could have been washed down into cracks over millennia, making the dates unreliable for dating the structure itself. The debate got so intense that the original paper was actually retracted by its publisher. So, from a mainstream scientific perspective, the official answer right now is no. So where does that leave us? Do we just dismiss it? I don't know, but the history of science is littered with ideas that were called heresy right before they became fact. Think about it. Continental drift was laughed at for decades. To even consider this idea means we have to entertain a much bigger one. What if we are a species with amnesia? What if the story we tell ourselves about our slow, steady climb from hunter-gatherers to civilization is missing a chapter? A big one. A chapter that was washed away when the ice melted. Being open to that doesn't mean we throw out scientific rigor. Not at all. It just means we don't let current paradigms blind us to future possibilities. It means we keep asking the questions. Because when you listen to the mystery of Gunung Padang, it sounds an awful lot like the stories from other ancient sites around the world. It feels like we're all just finding scattered pieces of the same enormous puzzle. And maybe, just maybe, the mountain of light is one of the most important pieces we've found yet.